Yes, all right. Okay, so we have Catherine O'Connor with us this evening. Catherine is a writer and landscape architect. She holds a BA in English literature from Duke University and a master's in landscape architecture from Harvard. She's the founding principal of Co-Design and has served as an adjunct faculty member at the UT School of Architecture. This is her novel, Dust Covered Lies, historical novel here. And we're just thrilled to have you with us this evening. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. What a great group. My goodness. I've never seen such a lively crowd. I'm used to doing book clubs and it's, not as
A little more.
We say to 8 and
yeah,
We amuse
more-
ourselves.
more Me talking, and I'm interested to hear what y'all think. I assume everyone's a writer of some sort. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
yes,
We guess.
emphasis on some sort.
I've only
Yeah.
written scientific papers. I've never written anything that is remotely.
Creative.
They're visiting us this morning.
that makes you a writer.
It's still putting words together.
Absolutely.
I'm a reader.
Welcome.
It's the first step.
That's a very
Crucial.
important step.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
to have readers, right?
And are
Right.
you also Pam?
I am also
Pam.
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 Sitting with Pam.
Friends from Delaware. Nice.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel really honored to be here. As Maureen mentioned, I'm a landscape architect and my writing career started only 5 years ago. And so I have entered this world of writing from a landscape architect's point of view. And I actually see it as another form of creative expression that is similar to what I do in my own work. And so just to, cancel a myth, I'm not an experienced writer. I just happen to get lucky. And lucky is a lot of what it's about. And also persistence and being able to get hammered a few times, like a lot of times, and keep going back. So resilience, talk about resilience in landscape. There is resilience in being a writer too.
Like
So,
inquiry letters, that kind of, the resistance, like inquiry letters and getting.
oh yes, finding an agent, not getting an agent, saying, this is, thank you, good luck. That's all you get back, right? Yeah,
If
And-
that.
I think I'm hammered in a different way.
exactly.
Yeah, hammer.
Yeah.
I'm not in. Come on.
Very confident about the objection.
So-
I kind of wanted to get hammered.
Yeah, I guess I used the wrong word, but it could be used both ways. But anyway, so what I wanted to talk to you about today is something that I feel I have a little bit of an expertise in, and that is creating a sense of place. It's something that I strive for in my landscape architectural work. And I also have been striving for in my writing. And it starts, I'm going to talk a little bit about, have any of you had the opportunity to read the book?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We'll pass it around. We'll pass it around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was published by TCU Press in 2024. And they were one of the, I'd sent it out to a bazillion places. And as I said, the rejections were just, mountainous. But TCU said it's not ready for publication yet. And that was the first source, crack in the door. And we worked together on it and I made some changes and then they said, we'll publish it. So, and it's historical fiction. It takes place in the 1860s in one part of it and the 1930s in another part. But back to this sense of place. When I was in graduate school, I participated in one of my studio classes. An exercise that we were given was to go to a place, it could be any place of your selection, and sit there for an hour or whatever you feel like, and come back at least once a week for 6 months. And write or draw. In our case, drawing was emphasized, and writing too. But to observe, to listen, to smell, to hear, all of the things that one experiences, and also to observe change. And I think that was probably, understanding that landscape is not static. Nothing is static. And that in even the smallest details, there is beauty, but there's also drama. And even, it crosses all scales. So that exercise was extremely helpful to me, both as a landscape architect and as a writer. And I would encourage you to practice it if you're interested, because it allows you to, I would say, see as capital E, as opposed to observe. And I think in this time where we're all so distracted, it's, at least I am, it's a time to think, to meditate, to, connect with yourself and your thoughts, and how you relate to what's around you. So, I mean, it could be a busy place too. It doesn't have to be.
So you chose your place and you went back to that same place.
That's correct.
Where did you go?
I went to just outside of Boston, just outside of Cambridge, is a cemetery called Mount Auburn Cemetery. Are y'all familiar?
We actually
Is.
are originally from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's one of the precursors to public parks in the United States, and because there was a time period where people were moving, cemeteries away from churches and out into the further landscape, but for health reasons, having rotting bodies is a concern. And Mount Auburn became not only a cemetery, but it also became a place where people would buy plots and even before anybody in their family died, they'd go out there and picnic. It was a place to sit and be in nature and enjoy each other and enjoy your neighbors, your plot neighbors, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, before everybody dies, right? So anyway, it's absolutely beautiful. It's of the picturesque style, which I won't go into because then we're talking about landscape architecture and not writing. But anyway, I found a spot on a pond. Maybe y'all are familiar with that pond. That is part of Mount Auburn Cemetery. And I went there every time. So that was the spot.
Sounds lovely.
It was. It
How
really
long
was.
did you stay there each time?
Well, until I started to panic about how much work I had to do back in the studio. And I tried not to think about all that work, but try to get away a little bit. Yes, I'd say about an hour. Yeah, we camp out or anything. Yeah,
That sounds really nice.
it was nice. Yeah,
How
so
often did you go?
once a week,
Once a week?
For what, length?
6 months. Yeah, as long as the studio lasts.
What's the period that the cemeteries moved away from the churches?
Well, I think it's Mount Auburn, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a long time since I've thought about dates associated with it, but I'd say the 1840s.
Okay, not 1600s.
I don't think so. Anybody that over there have any better info?
I
than
just
I
know
do?
Boston is really old, so.
Yeah.
Well, in
Yeah.
our terms, not European.
Yeah,
Did you
Right.
go even in the winter?
yes.
That would be especially.
Yeah, I could stay a short time.
Well, you load up on this. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to get out there and try it when it's uncomfortable, Because life isn't just one big donut all the time. So I think it's important to put yourself in places that are uncomfortable too. In fact, I like to write about places that are uncomfortable. The setting for Dust Covered Lies is Central Texas for part of it, but also just south of Amarillo, in the Dust Bowl during a very challenging time. So that allows landscape to be as much a character as a description. It affects the characters and it changes them. So anyway, that's that part. But let me just get my notes here just for a second. So for Dust Covered Lies, I mentioned it takes place in Central Texas. And I went out, how many of you have been to Colorado Bend State Park?
Nope.
Okay, it's a great spot. If you haven't been there, you got to go.
Yes. Been there.
Yeah. And in my mind, I had camped there, usually by myself, camped there, fished there, kayaked there, hiked there. And one time I made an unfortunate campsite choice. It was right below the fish cleaning station.
Oh.
Oh,
You know, that gave me an aroma that was unforgettable, and hard to sleep by. But anyway, being out there and listening and watching a yellow moon rise over the cliffs or beyond, you know, it's one of those things that you start to realize this place had an impact on me. And I feel like I can write about it because I've experienced it. And I have trouble writing about things that I haven't seen because I'm a very visual person. And other people, I'm sure, can do that, but it's not in my makeup. So anyway, and there were places in that setting that were particularly useful in what I was writing about, like a cave within a cliff that becomes a scene. The trees as they, you know, are umbrella-like over the river, the pecan trees, the live oaks that, you know, kind of do that. And all of that, I would say, is integrated in the novel based on my experiences being there. And I would also say that there's some great books that are so good at this. I mean, if you never read Goodbye to a River, that is one that'll it's just marvelous, by John Graves. It's not fiction. It's his account of traveling down at least the Brazos for the last time before it was dammed up. And anyway, it's so good. And I would also say that Wallace Stegner obviously is a remarkable author at creating a sense of place. And those are great examples to use. And of course, Willa Cather. You know, how can you not mention Willa Cather? I mean, I brought something from my Antonia, which I just think is amazing. She said, one Sunday I rode over there with Jake to get a horse collar, which Ambrose had borrowed from him and not returned. It was a beautiful blue morning. The buffalo peas in pink and purple masses along the roadside, and the larks perched on last year's dried sunflower stalks were singing straight at the sun, their heads thrown back and their yellow breasts a quiver. The wind blew about us in warm, sweet gusts. We rode slowly with a pleasant sense of Sunday indolence. You know, it's so beautiful.
Paint a picture.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think you can go too far too. She does it beautifully and gets away with it. I think the more I talk about it, it's sort of, you know, you lose the plot, right?
Yeah.
You can do too much.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is use it strategically to rather than excessively. And anyway, so, and I think my knowledge of plants has been super helpful in sort of leading the way I write about landscape. And because I pay a great deal of attention to what they look like at different times of year and how they make you feel, like little, I'll just read you one thing from Dust Covered Lies. Are you all familiar with Little Blue Stem?
Yes.
No. Okay.
No.
Well,
Grass, yes.
it's one of our
Oh, yeah.
one of our native grasses. It's blue in the spring, well, greenish blue in the spring, and in the fall it turns sort of a rust color, and it puts on these fronds, right, that are light and blow in the wind. And let's see. So I have a couple of characters here. Cora, Marie Isabel, Juan Esteban, and I strolled west from the dry goods store, past 4 one-story log buildings along Main Street, our post office, Pop's one-room Methodist church, which was also our school, and the blacksmith and livery. Nearing the edge of town, the road narrowed and weaved between dipping live oak branches, then opened upon a blue stem prairie where grasses were taking on their fall fronds. Wispy florets collected on Cora and Marie Isabel's dresses, creating a fanciful flair to their youthful procession. So that's an example of how you can, use plants to really put someone in that place. And so I would say, and it could be anything. It doesn't have to be plants. It could be, whatever it is you want to describe. So rocks, whatever.
I think you made a good point that trying to balance like pacing wise,
Right.
Like you can sprinkle it in and make it very specific, and you don't have to spend a lot of time with description and still kind of ground the readers and the characters in that place.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but it is interesting, I think, to think about pacing with,
Right.
with description and like, when do you want to slow it down and spend more time on description and why? And when do you want to kind of forego that and just keep going with the action?
Exactly. I have a writers group that 2 good friends, we all work on something and we all critique what we're working on. And one of my friends is really good at plot,
Really?
and I never have been very good at plot. And at least I wasn't when I started. I think I'm getting better. But she was a good critique of plot. I think my strength is in character development, but you can't, base a book on, at least I don't think so. Maybe I'll disagree. Feel free to jump in. It can't be exclusively character development. So
I was gonna ask you, because came into it, thinking about places and settings, do you picture the scene before you put the characters into it, or are you picturing the characters and then placing them in the scene?
I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah. This Dust Covered Lies starts, the idea originally came, it's a relationship between an older woman and a little boy who comes to work at her home in Lilo, Texas, which doesn't exist, but is in, south of Amarillo somewhere. I didn't want to make anybody mad, pick a town,
Right. Right.
make some people mad. So it started there, and I extruded sort of both ways, to the end of her life and to the beginning of her life. And so it goes back and forth between those 2 time periods. And that was the hardest part, honestly, to make sure, and it's first person as well. That was the hardest part, to make sure that I didn't lose the plot in jumping back and forth during time periods and keeping things tied together. So, oh yeah, sure.
Have you ever read The Wind by, I think, Dorothy Scarborough? Written and banned in Texas for a number of years, 1932, I want to say. I was a city planner in Lubbock for a number of years,
Oh, really?
and I really am in love with that part of the country.
Yeah,
And it is a very small book and hard to get.
interesting.
It's about a woman who goes mad because of the wind.
Wow, wow,
West
that's,
Texas. It's-
that's interesting.
Character and setting are just remarkable. And
Yeah,
I became kind of obsessed with finding the book because I'd read some historical documents that referenced it.
right.
I think they made a
And I
silent
finally
movie of
did
it in
find
the
it, but it's
nineteen
difficult.
teens.
Really?
Did they?
It was a D.W. Griffith famous.
Yeah, I believe there was a film made. I never
With
saw the
Dorothy
film,
Gishin.
so I don't know if it was any good, but the book was
What's,
really
what's the
good.
author's name?
I think it's Dorothy Scarborough, is that
Okay.
correct?
Book is
Dorothy
called-
Scarborough, and it's simply called The Wind.
The Wind.
Hmm.
It is about a woman who's still suited to living on the prairie.
Yeah.
And she is left in, I think, Sweetwater or near Sweetwater. I was doing a lot of historic research about the Dust Bowl. And that's when I ran across the name of this book, and I thought, I'm gonna read that book. Not an easy task, but definitely worth it if you can get it.
Wow, that sounds great. I'm
But I don't know if the movie's any good.
gonna look for it.
Can I ask, why was it challenged or banned?
It was banned
Why was it banned?
because it painted a very
But
bad
negative,
picture
right?
of the Texas Panhandle during the Dust Bowl.
Hmm.
I mean, the woman does go mad.
Mhm.
And you know, at that time, I think 32, maybe 39, that was such a taboo subject that, I guess that's why. I mean, I don't know exactly,
Mhm.
because it's nothing offensive in it. It's very sad, very heart-wrenching when the woman is losing her mind.
Yeah.
Boy, I
And the
bet.
wind is howling and howling
Yeah.
and howling.
Yeah.
But if you've read any accounts of the Dust Bowl, actual
That's-
account,
Mhm.
it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Franny, the character in this book,
Mhm.
has her own wrestling with the
I'll
Dust
have
Bowl.
to read your book because I
I
would
think-
love to.
I think it might fall right into your,
Yeah, I would absolutely
area of
love to read it. I will read it.
Mhm.
yeah. Back to plants, you know, there's some, have you all ever been to Deep Eddy and, you know, laid under the cottonwoods down there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What does it remind you of?
Cottonwood.
Woods or Deep Eddy?
Cottonwoods. The
Oh,
cottonwoods,
Cottonwoods.
experientially, what does it remind you of?
I don't know. They're massive and they're short-lived and they
Mhm.
make a mess. They make a mess, both the cotton and the fact that they fall apart and leave a lot of little branches. But
You have a very negative.
well, we had one in our neighbor's yard and it fogged up our air conditioner, you know.
It's half full and it's got a crack in it. and-
You can jump in, Craig, if you want to say something.
Two things. One is, Catherine, I wanted to congratulate you on being able to use the word extruding gracefully in a sentence. I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
Wow, I feel, should we get a plaque and,
Yes, yes.
and, the extrusion plaque?
Yeah.
I didn't notice you.
Screwed metal.
That was serious. But the point I was originally going to make, when you were giving your general remarks on place, you mentioned hearing and smell.
Right,
And then in the little thing that you read there from the book, it was mostly just visual.
that's
So
true.
I'm curious to know whether you consciously invoked hearing and smelling and other things in other places in the book. And
I think so. I hope so. That would have, I couldn't, I mean, I wrote this, 4 years ago now, so I couldn't tell you exactly where it happens, but I would like to believe, based on what I'm describing to you, that I did do a little bit of that.
We read one excerpt last week where she's just arriving in Galveston, and you
Yeah.
do use a lot of different sentences in that scene.
Right.
That was good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, historically, my comment on the cottonwood is that when they were building the Union Pacific, it was the only wood they could find. And it's a very soft wood and
That's
it did
right.
not hold up well at all.
that's correct.
And so the Union Pacific, they had slowed them down because they had to bring in
Yeah,
harder wood. Even if it was pine, they had to bring in harder wood because the cottonwood wouldn't last for ties.
that's right.
And that's all they didn't know when they planned it. They didn't realize that was the only wood out there.
Yeah.
They thought they would save money by harvesting wood locally, and it wasn't very suitable.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, right?
But all the creeks out there on the plains are lined with cottonwoods, and it's very pretty.
So beautiful in the fall.
It's beautiful because you can, if you're crossing the prairie and you see those trees off in the distance, you know it's a creek.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say, and with
Mhm.
my question is, if you lay underneath and you listen, it sounds like rain.
Mm.
The leaves are,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the way they,
Rustling.
yeah, and it's all, and, you know, being from Texas, where rain is precious, it's nice to have a place where you can go and close your eyes and hear the rain when it's not raining. So, anyway, you see, thought I had all these things to say.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
I can ask you.
I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
What is your writing process? You know, do you have like a routine and I don't know, you just create and imagine and then step back and edit, or do you outline? I'm just curious how you
It has sort of,
evolved.
evolved over time. Yeah. My landscape architecture practice, because I work on big teams with architects and engineers and things like that on a lot of public work, sort of goes up and down, you know. So I'd find spots within that cycle to work on my writing
Oh,
and do it on weekends too. So,
yeah.
and as far as the process is concerned, I don't outline really. I find that to be, I have sort of general ideas of where I'm headed, but I don't outline because I find it to be stifling.
Mhm.
And yeah, and where I get my best inspiration is from the historical research that I'm doing. Like it might take me to unexpected places, and like you, I love
Yeah.
history.
I love history,
Love history.
and I have to see it also.
Yeah.
My wife and I do a lot of driving while I'm researching,
Yeah,
because I have to see it just like you.
yeah. And I want to know the facts too.
Yeah.
I don't want
And my
something.
book keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Right, right.
And Todd doesn't make mistakes, and if you do, he'll catch them.
That's exactly right. Like this cover here. This is a prairie chicken, right?
Oh.
Now, when we were going through the development of the cover, the designer removed these two feathers right here. And I was like, no. It's a prairie chicken. You know, and so it's otherwise it's gonna look like a woodpecker, you know, so anyway, I had to, having some sense of, I don't like to fudge with history and truth. I like to use it as a tool to help add dynamics to the writing. But back to your question about how I work. Lately, I've been doing, so I'll sit at my computer in the morning and hammer some stuff out. And then in the afternoon, I'll walk sometimes. And I find that walking really frees me up. And I'll email myself good ideas and bad ideas. And come back and work on it a little bit more.
Good ideas and bad ideas.
Yeah,
Any ideas.
sure.
Listen,
And you know, they're and sleep on it. And the next day, the bad ideas reveal themselves, and or at least partially. And then the some of the good ideas, I mean, you know it, you feel it when you got one. Right?
Yeah, I always think of it as like throwing spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah.
And like whatever's good stick, and everything that's bad will fall away.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
You remember the stuff that you.
So when you're walking, how do you email it yourself? Do you voicemail it?
No, I write it, and we live in Westlake Hills and on a little street, dead end street. So I just go back and forth and back. And man, time flies when you're doing. I mean, you can get in some miles when you're riding and walking.
Right.
And there's another author, TCU author named Patrick Deeren, who does the same thing. Only he talks, and I can't talk and do it. It just doesn't work for me that way.
Wait, so you're writing while you're walking?
Yes,
Well, like with like a notebook or something, or
With my phone.
With your phone, you're just kind of Wow.
Yeah, texting or emailing myself.
Wow.
And I'm not writing it as it will be written in book.
Right.
I'm writing ideas,
Mhm.
taking notes, and then coming back and fleshing those things out.
Mhm.
So I found it to be a really great way to sort of open things up a little bit. And,
Mm.
it can be very isolating and constricting to be at your desk for too long.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Are you currently working on something?
I am, yeah. Well, TCU Press is publishing my second novel
Wow.
in November. So
Great.
we're working on the cover and we're working on the editing right now.
Is it also historic?
Yeah,
fiction?
It is, yes.
So that was gonna be my question, was when you found TCU and, they said they were gonna publish it, did you sign a contract to write more books with that?
No,
It
no,
was
they take one book at a time, and if they don't think you're worthy of your second book, then, you don't get it.
Okay.
You're not worthy.
But I'll tell you what helped me was I submitted Dust Covered Lies for some awards, and it won 2 Spur Awards from the Western Writers of America. Are y'all familiar with that organization?
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so
So you won the award and then submitted it to TCU for publication, or you published
No.
it and then it won award?
that's correct.
Okay, got it.
Right. And, it won Best Traditional Historical Fiction and Best Debut Novel. And
Wow. Yeah.
so that was exciting. And that really opened the door for the publication of the second one. They're like, well, why wouldn't we do this? So that was very, it was a big milestone for me. And I didn't realize it at the time.
Mhm.
I thought, wow, it got this award. It's swell. But anyway, yeah, that changed.
Well,
That changed everything.
congratulations.
To be honest.
Yeah.
That's a huge kudo.
You have a title?
For the next one, Heart of the Owl. I assume it's going to end up being that.
Part of the hour?
Owl.
It'll be a owl. Yeah. So this has a prairie chicken.
So we're sticking to the bird theme.
We're in the bird category
Birds.
generally.
It's in the air.
Working on my ornithology.
Well, our theme, this was birds.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Did you go somewhere
Go ahead.
to do the research on these?
Owl.
Yeah,
Owl.
It'll be out in November. And I'm working on something else, but I had to put it aside because I was getting too confused by what I'd written. I'm talking about Dust Covered Lies. Got another one coming out, and then I'm writing another one.
Which headspace are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So in these little these little characters have been about this tall, 1/4 inch tall in my head, running around, and then they finally came out, and it's been I felt like not pride in my writing skill, but pride in the characters.
Yeah.
And that they've been accepted and people talk about them.
Yeah.
And it's like they're not mine anymore. It's like they're my children and they've moved on. And
They
people,
are really strong characters. Really, I mean, they are like people, they're very real. So,
thank you.
yeah. Thank you. It's like strange. Sometimes it's strange to think about when you read a book and the characters are very real to you, and then meeting the author, you're like, oh, but I don't know. It seems like they're like alive in the world, but they started with you. So,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's really kind of,
Nice compliment.
yes, thank you.
Did you go somewhere to do research on these places in these time periods?
I mainly had to use the internet and research tools on the internet to look at a lot of photographs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like part of the book, it starts in Galveston.
Mhm.
The main characters come over on a sailing ship, ride in steerage. And I've looked up, spent a lot of time looking at drawings of what boats like that looked like. And to try and get an understanding of what it would have been like in steerage, and listening to people's accounts of what it was like. I mean, reading people's accounts of what it was like. And there's also a gun in it. And that also a rifle, which is a very important prop in the book. And I needed to understand about what kind of rifle someone would have
Mhm.
carried over from Europe during that time period, and it needed to be special.
Mhm.
So that took a lot of time too. But these are the little, rabbit holes I go down that I love doing. And I'm about to retire my landscape architecture practice. And
Mm.
as long as I have the research, I feel like, and a curiosity, I feel like I'll be all right. Yeah.
How do you balance when you're doing historical fiction? I've never written historical fiction before, and I always feel like kind of how you were talking about how it's set in Lilo, which is a fictional town, so you didn't make anybody mad. I always felt like that about historical fiction. Like this is something that actually a time and a place that existed that I have never experienced.
Right.
And I never thought that I had like the authority kind of to, or maybe the imagination to kind of put a story someplace like that. But how do you balance like the research and the imagination to try to create a story that's not just fact, but
I think it has to do with starting with the research and then thinking about like how, just like what we were talking about before with you mentioned that book, how the Dust Bowl, imagining how the Dust Bowl might affect someone mentally, physically, all of that. And so it's grounded in research and then springs from research. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you have to give yourself permission to just kind of
Yeah.
write it. So,
Well, right. And you're writing, I had this conversation with a group just recently about, the difference between, well, some people like historical fiction and others don't. Some people want to know the absolute facts, And so what we were talking about is the difference in historical fiction and history, historical writing, and how your historical fiction is the only way you can get in somebody's head during that time period. Right.
You're making it
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah.
Making it alive.
It's just history.
That's right.
You have license to be in their head.
That's exactly right.
That sort of goes back to you working in the cold near Boston.
Mhm.
Being miserable makes you get what that person is feeling.
That's for damn sure.
Better than having always lived on a sunny street and
Yeah.
comfortable place.
But if only
Exactly.
they could teach history classes like that.
Oh, yeah.
Don't they do that?
Not in my history class.
They try to make it entertaining.
Well,
I mean, it would have been nice to have a required reading of a novel, a historical novel, to give the students. a sense of
Yeah.
Yes.
setting.
I think,
I think some of them are getting better about that.
yeah, I think, Eric Larson, he's nonfiction.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I
Boy,
think
can he
Oh,
do a
he's
great
wonderful.
job of making you feel like you're there.
Hmm.
Oh, my word. Listening to
Storm
the,
is one of the best books I ever read.
yes, it was fascinating. And I'm reading the Demon of Unrest about the early days before the Civil War. And I'm not big on, reading about the Civil War, but this, I mean, you feel every bit of pressure that those folks felt during that time period. And it's incredibly well done.
Do you call that creative nonfiction, where somebody's writing really a vivid story that's factual?
I guess so. What would you call it?
I guess like historical creative nonfiction.
I don't know. I've never thought of what to call it, but no, I like that.
He spoke at Most People a number of years ago. He
Is
was
that right?
Great.
Oh, he's,
I had just finished
So
reading In the
impressed.
Garden of the Beasts.
oh, yes,
About the Nazis.
yes.
He was a remarkably good speaker.
Yeah, I bet,
Hmm.
I bet. I'm sure he has a whole team of research people too.
Probably.
Yeah, like
He has
Mishner
to.
did,
He's-
right?
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna mention missionaries.
Yeah.
I guess that's exclusively what he did is research, and then write these tomes full of his
Yes.
own characters.
That's right.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, he.
You were
I
talking
ran
about
across an allusion.
lands.
I ran across an allusion to fiction as empathy, Jim.
Oh, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, an empathy, Jim.
Mhm.
I thought that was an arresting
Mhm.
comparison.
Exactly, yeah. That's really true. It's a good point.
You were talking about landscape and weather and environment, sort of defining a character. Have you read a book called The Great Alone?
No.
Oh,
It's by Kristen Hanna.
Oh, yes, yes.
It just really makes you feel how miserable the winter in Alaska has to be. It's incredible. I was freezing cold the whole time I was reading the book.
yeah.
It was fantastic. I mean, it wasn't a happy story by any
Right.
stretch of the imagination, but it really defined the characters
Mhm.
by the environment they lived in.
Yes.
It was-
She writes the Dust Bowl book too,
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
the Four Winds.
Oh,
I
wait,
won't
no.
do- Yeah, it was quite
And
remarkable.
I'll have to
really.
read it. She's very good.
Her other, did you read The Women by Kristen
Yeah,
Hanna?
it's on my
About
list.
Vietnam women,
What's that?
about Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's intense, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of kept wanting to stop reading it because it was so much, but I couldn't stop reading and it was really good.
Another good landscape book is Northwoods. Have you ever read that?
Mm-mm.
It's very different and, but it's very unique. It takes place in New England. And I'm not gonna say anymore, but it's very, very good. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
My mind is pathetic.
Wait, is that kind of new? Is that a newer one? I thought I just got that one on my Kindle. I don't have Kindle with me, but
Y'all talk amongst yourself.
yeah, wait, is that kind of like the same place over time with different people who live there?
Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of read the first chapter of it maybe a week or two ago.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it looked like it was gonna be really good.
One of the best books I've read in a long time.
Yeah.
Who's the author? I'm sorry.
I can't remember either. I can't remember either, but I just read the first chapter of it a couple weeks ago because I was just kind of curious about it. Northwood?
One second, I'm getting
Is
it.
it Daniel Mason? I don't
That's
know.
it,
Okay,
Daniel Mason.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
I mean, it's very unique.
same place,
Yep,
right? Over and different people who live in that place over a long period of time, right?
and
Hundreds of years.
that's right,
Uh-huh.
in their interactions,
Mhm.
almost sometimes supernatural.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pam.
I'm curious, doing this historical fiction during that period of time, during the Dust Bowl, were there any particular books that you read to help inform you
Mhm.
about the Dust Bowl? Because that was such a powerful, painful
I watched the Ken Burns.
Yeah, the
That's
Ken
really
Burns, I love
Ken
this
Burns.
documentary.
Amazing.
Yeah, everything he does is. I didn't, I mainly looked at imagery and read articles and things like that. I didn't read any fiction.
Mhm.
I try not to read fiction when I'm.
Do your own fiction.
Yeah,
If you can get a hold of photographs from that time,
absolutely.
they are incredible.
And my husband's grandfather, they lived in Woodward and his mother grew up there and they had tornadoes and there's a book that was written about Woodward that was helpful to understanding that time period. It would have been the Dust Bowl, for sure. So, in Oklahoma.
The first time I ever saw one of the dusts coming through in a photograph, I thought, this isn't AI. AI was not invented at the time I saw it. This has got to be real.
Mhm.
But it was so strange.
Mhm.
You don't think anything could ever really look like that.
Mhm.
That's exactly right. It feels like Armageddon, right?
It
Like
did.
it, yeah.
It did look
Oh,
like that.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Why would, what did it look like?
It's hard to describe, just,
Is it like a sandstorm?
It's like a-
except that it's
Roll-
black.
It's
a
dark
rolling
black.
black.
And
Wow.
noisy and
Towards town.
apocalyptic.
Yeah.
It is
And
very,
unrelenting.
find a photograph.
Scary.
Nowadays online,
Crawls in your closed doors of
Is
your
that,
house.
did that
It's in your
inspire
ears and your-
I don't know.
You can't protect your children, you can't protect
That's
yourself.
exactly right.
That's why
Well, people
it's
just
scary.
like in Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, or whatever, they went down into
They're-
And it went on for years.
Yeah.
Kansas, yeah. That's-
Why is it not happening? Why was it only like that for?
Some of it is because we know what we're doing. with
Agricultural,
planting.
excess.
Yeah,
The soil conservation services
Yeah.
help
Yeah,
us
you
deal
need
with
to
some of
read
those
about the
things.
history of it, because
Yeah.
we
They care about all
absolutely
the
created.
ingredients.
Farmers did the
Yeah.
wrong things that were
Correct.
exacerbated by other programs that emphasize the wrong ways to help the soil.
That's right.
And
They
also,
really
We
have
exercise.
prairie.
they were planting for the world,
Mhm.
and so they destroyed the actual earth that they were
Wow.
using. It's very interesting history,
Mhm.
very interesting. Anybody who ever read it would believe in environmental movement. Seriously.
That's very true.
Right.
Right.
Are you talking about Soil Conservation Service?
Yeah.
Mhm. I was asking, why did that happen for this fixed amount of time, and now we don't have that anymore, so.
How, what,
It
Well,
doesn't-
I was just talking about how the Soil Conservation Service made efforts among farmers to help them address issues of soil erosion. And, like benching, fields. I'm not an expert in this, so I'm kind of winging it here. But that was, there were techniques that were recommended to address, wind erosion, water erosion, things like that.
One of the things,
my
I forgot
father
whether,
worked on soil.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Where did he do that?
Northeast Mississippi,
Wow.
Tennessee River.
Uh-huh. Yeah, which is a whole nother kettle of fish, right? Yeah.
My family came across the Tennessee River soon after Revolutionary War, and people were going through the Cumberland Gap.
Yeah.
And so the family tragedy was when they crossed the river and their only mule drowned.
Oh, man.
And that was a major loss.
That's a major.
Yeah,
That's a major loss. Yeah.
that means a human pulls the plow.
Sherry, you were getting.
oh, I was just gonna say, I have forgotten whether it was Wilson, I've forgotten who the president was at that time. But he had a tree, they planted trees all the way from, I think it was Abilene to north of Nebraska, a row of trees to stop the wind.
Oh, wow.
Pretty incredible. Because I think it was Woodrow Wilson, but I may be wrong there. I forget the names.
I
I
forget.
beg your pardon?
What year were you talking? Is
It was during the Dust Bowl, when they were beginning to
FDR was the
recognize.
Dust
Who was it?
FDR.
Okay. Oh, of course it was, yes. So they were trying once they realized what was happening.
You had mentioned that when you were in school and you used to go to the cemetery, that people were encouraged to either write or draw, and that you would often draw. Do you find that, when you're writing about a certain place, that you draw it, or that you draw maps, or you look at maps, or how you're a visual person, like, how does that work when you're writing?
Yeah, I do draw sometimes, because I have to, I'm working on something right now where I need to know how a fire might have started and sort of moved through the landscape in a way that burned down this. I'm working on it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I drew out a little map of, how that might occur if there's a wind shift and how that might have happened. But
Yeah.
for sure, I do that. And you read that remember there's drawing in
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
There's let me explain one character to you a little bit. There's a character named Juan Esteban, and he's autistic, and he doesn't, he can't articulate what he wants to say. And so he's not able to communicate with words, but he communicates with drawing. And he is able, back to this sense of place, he is able to see in ways that the rest of us can't see, right? So he draws what he sees, and but he sees it in more depth and richness than the rest of us would typically see. And so it allows him to, it allows us, again, I use the word capital S, capital E, to see the world through his eyes in a way that's very different than what we might experience. And so he creates a sense of place through character.
Huh.
Yeah. So there.
Were you familiar with people on spectrum? Was that something that you were able to do, or how did you come up with his that perspective?
Real, though.
Yeah, my niece is severely autistic. She's 31 years old and she can barely speak. She can do a few hand signals to communicate a little bit. But the reaction that her family has to her and how they support her is just beyond marvelous. And so that was an their family was an inspiration for the character Juan Esteban.
Wow, wow.
And I mean, he's much more
Functional.
thank you, than McCrae is.
Uh-huh.
Like McCrae will, you decorate the Christmas tree, and if you're not with her, it'll be undecorated in
Uh-huh.
10 minutes. And so she needs somebody with her pretty much all the time. And her parents have taken on that role, and her siblings have stepped up. And this book also is very much about sibling relationships. And so that also is an inspiration. Their family was an inspiration for how a family works together and how important family loyalty is. And something that is very important to Franny. She basically sacrifices her life to so that Juan Esteban can maintain his. Not dying, but I'm not going to tell you anymore.
I know. Yeah, she does something selfless to save her brother.
That's right.
That's wonderful.
So
Can you talk at all about either the book that's going to be coming out this fall or the book that you're working on now, or do you not want to say too
No,
much?
I'll talk about the one that's coming out this fall a little bit. It takes place in El Paso. Are any of you from El Paso? No? Well, El Paso, it takes place during the Prohibition and during the Depression. And I've found El Paso to be a fascinating place because of its historic diversity. There was a large Jewish population. There was a large African-American population. I mean, relatively speaking, right? A large Chinese population because of the railroads, Hispanic, obviously, and, Anglo. So it was a real melting pot. I think for that reason, it's very interesting to me. But so it takes place in El Paso. This is a mother-son relationship, and they're escaping a destructive marriage. And they go to, that's very short part at the beginning. And they go to El Paso to try and look for Francisco's real father. And anyway, they get in a fix because she doesn't have any money. It's depression. She can't get a job. So she ends up joining a tequila smuggling operation to get some. And things go bad. And but Francisco has a special relationship with Alice. And it's his opportunity through Alice, it's his opportunity to find out who he is. And they discover something in their retreat from this bad situation that changes their lives forever. So
It's interesting to me that, okay, so you have these characters in your new book who are escaping a bad situation.
Right.
And maybe they're going through another bad situation.
Exactly.
In this book, I don't want to spoil anything, but anyway, Franny, I'm gonna say it, Franny is an orphan.
Yeah,
And,
sure. Go
and
ahead.
then there's another bad guy in the book, that she has to deal with. So, I mean, from the beginning, you're kind of rooting for her because she's on her own in a new country. And then you're rooting for her some more because she's kind of dealing with this bad person. And so I feel like this is kind of, something that you write about in your books, that you have these characters who are maybe escaping a bad situation. They're going through other challenges. And I don't know if you want to talk at all about that or.
Yeah, I think my fellow writers in my writers group are really helpful to help me understand that a character needs some sort of trajectory, right? They need to be maybe this is incorrect, but it seems to me to be important that a character transforms in some way through the book. Right?
Yeah.
And so that understanding what you want that person to be like at the end evolves. It's not like, ooh, I want her to be this. You almost experience it with your character in terms of trying to understand that journey. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah. But I think it helps us, as the readers, to kind of be like rooting for somebody,
right,
from the get-go, and then to see them kind of as active participants trying to get through these bad times. We're still rooting for them, kind of.
And the bad guy, I'll tell you, well, one of the bad guys, he's a professor, and he comes from France to explore America and the wildlife in America. And he says he works for the Natural History Museum in Paris, and he's going to shoot these animals and stuff them and send them back, because that was a very popular thing in Europe during that time period. People wanted to know about America, and they set up museums for this purpose. So he didn't start out as a bad guy. I thought he was just going to be kind of an interesting scientist, but I didn't take it that way. But I'll just share a little humor with you. So my husband is a professor, a retired professor from UT in civil engineering. And at the very end, near the end of the book, Franny has a bad experience with this professor. She says she's encountering something, and she goes, I thought all professors were sons of bitches. Get a rise out of my husband, and just to see if he'd think it was funny.
Did he?
I resemble that. Come on.
What do you teach?
I taught astronomy.
Oh, awesome.
Also UT.
Wonderful. Wow. Gosh.
I really like what you said a minute ago. I found it helpful. A writer needs to know what they want the character to come out as. I mean, I probably didn't use your words because
it's close.
But I think I have struggled with that, and I created a character who went through some things and changed.
Yeah.
But I haven't really asked myself that question. What do I want this person? That's a good question, a very good question.
Yeah.
How do you want, what do you want them to end up like?
To end up being,
and
you need to, I guess, show why they end up being that.
And can you have an idea in mind, like, I want this character to end up like this, and then they don't? They
can let you down too. It's okay to have them let you down sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I just lost my thought.
I keep,
That was the character.
I've been on a reverie in my own mind since we started way back talking about going to a place and watching it change. And back in my old interactive fiction career, I took the setting of the games and describing the scenes and locations so serious that this is actually why I can claim to be a paid, professionally published author, as I wrote a chapter in a book it was an anthology of how to write for video games.
Cool. Mhm.
And I wrote a whole chapter on writing scene descriptions for
Yeah.
interactive fiction and how it, it evolved from like a Dungeons and Dragons like map, and you just you're in the to it changes depending on where you are in the story,
Yeah.
what's going on, and you have to like, if this is the case, then describe it this way. And one of the first big pieces I wrote was a time travel game, but it was mainly an exploration of setting. It wasn't some futuristic thing. It was almost like the game kind of starts where your character, you hear something funny in your own backyard, and this time machine appears. But it's locked into that one place, but you can go forward and backward in time.
Yeah.
And so it goes from being your backyard to slightly before your house was built.
It sounds like the Northwest.
And then
Yeah.
even farther back where it's a totally natural virgin landscape, and you find out the path you've been walking on the whole game is a little creek that's been running there but long since dried up. And then you go forward and things are kind of getting decayed and run down. And then if you go far enough in the future, it's paved into a sun-blasted parking lot, like someone's really destroyed this environment. And you find out the whole point of the game is to do something to fix that future. So
That's
it's
really
still nice in the
interesting.
future. And then you go back to the present and go, and then you collapse in your bed and it's over. Right where you started. Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's called First Things First. It's actually mentioned in my bio.
That's really interesting.
But yeah, but there are all different ways that authors at the time were learning to just really get into describing the place you're in and how much you can
Yeah.
change that as the story. And that is the story, is how this environment
And
is
it's
changing.
wonderful that you have the opportunity to change it.
Yeah, and it was,
To improve.
I invented a place, but then I spent like 2 or 3 years going back and forward in time on it. So I really got to know it and change it and play with the weather and do all sorts of things
That's
with it.
neat.
So it's still a place I know in my head, like, oh yeah, that place. I just could visit there again or something. Never wrote a sequel that I was working on for years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time. I keep mentioning it more and more. Maybe it's kind of bubbling to the surface again.
I was wondering, do you find that your characters or your story, your plot, takes a turn which you did not expect?
Yes.
So that's
Uh,
normal.
You gotta let them do that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's really exciting sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's all of a sudden, you just start pedaling, you really, it's energizing. And you may head that way and then realize I need to come back or come back partly or whatever. But yeah, I think that's really fun. When you have that experience, it's really neat. Yeah, it's really surprise yourself, right? That's sort of the beauty of writing is I don't know, you can surprise yourself,
Yeah.
right?
So, and when you're working with TCU Press, how does it work in terms of, you give them a manuscript, do they come back with edits, with suggestions, with requests, with like mandatory things that you have to do, or how does that?
It was always a suggestion,
Okay.
not mandatory.
Mhm.
But it was usually good.
Mhm.
It improved the writing rather than, and I might get a little bit mad about something
Mhm.
and like, get it, and I need to, what I do is I sleep on it. I wake up the next day and I think there's a point to that.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
React.
and then,
Mhm.
reconsider and address it.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say, they're a small press, so
Mhm.
they don't do a lot of editing because they don't have the capacity to do that. So when you deliver a book to them, manuscript, I think they're looking for manuscripts that don't need a ton of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking for manuscripts, what?
That don't need a ton of work editing. And, and they're not cranking them out. I mean, it took 2 years to get this out, you know? And they only look at one book at a time, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, you know, it's 2 years between, you know, I could be dead by the time this next one this comes out, but, I hope not, but it's possible. So, yeah. But I think that is fairly standard in the big world of publishing.
Really?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You know, just selling it.
Mhm.
Well, in the big world, selling it, finding someone who'll publish it,
Mhm.
but in the little world,
Mhm.
it's just a manpower issue.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think they have 4 people that work there.
Wow.
And they produce, I think, 12 to 15 books a year.
Okay, so it's, you know, that's really competitive to do that.
It is.
But you don't need an agent, a literary agent?
I couldn't get one.
Okay.
You would need, yes. you could get one now.
You could, you have a
Yeah.
second book coming out.
I'm a little anti-agent now.
Yeah, well, you know, Sherry.
You gotta do it yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it made me mad. Now I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get
I'll show them.
Now you'll have to beg me.
That's a good incentive, right?
Yeah.
Sherry, have you heard of the Texas Institute of Letters?
I think I have, yes.
Because it sounds to me that the speaker at Texas, at Sisters in Crime yesterday,
Yeah.
is a member of that. My sister's a member of that, although I'm not quite sure why, because she's not from Texas, nor does she really write about it. But I think well, that's true, the chapters are separate.
Yeah.
I think you would be really good at that, and you do have to be nominated. Look a little into it. and
I
if
will.
you're
That's a great
interested,
idea.
I will tell my sister, I think she needs to nominate you.
Oh.
I think she
fabulous.
can, she's a member, not
Is
sure.
that's not the Texas Philosophical Society?
No.
is it? Okay,
This
it's a
is,
different entity. Yeah.
Michael from yesterday is a member.
Michael Bracken,
Yeah.
spoke yesterday at Sisters in Crime,
And
yeah.
they have some, like some really great people you will have heard of and people that you have not.
Right, right,
Um,
sure.
I was fortunate to get to go to one of their conventions one time,
Huh.
not because I'm a writer, because
Yeah.
I happen to be the sister of one.
Yeah.
But it was really entertaining. The people, really great people. Tish Hinojosa is one of them. Some of them are musicians, some of them are film writers. So are poets. I think Michael now goes as a poet. But your work sounds to me like it would really fit that group.
Well,
It's
that would,
just an honor. I don't think anything
Yeah.
comes with it except, you. But that's still a good thing. It's always
well,
good.
no, it's always great.
I think it's called the Texas Institute of Letters. But
I'll
double
look that
check
up, but thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, the Western Writers of America are very much formed like that as well. Musicians, poets, screenwriters, anyway, and so they give out awards for all of that every year.
And you have to be nominated.
Yeah.
No, you can submit.
You can.
You don't have to
I
be
may be
nominated.
wrong about their process, but I think that you have to be nominated. The best part of this convention was the night, 2 nights, that different people read their work, and it was, some of the people
Yeah.
were so good.
Yeah, I bet that's awesome. Yeah,
What do you do for marketing? I mean, TCU probably doesn't market.
not much.
So how do you get your work out there? Other than book clubs you mentioned and then coming to speak to us, which, there's a bunch of readers there, but is there something that you're doing?
The Texas Book Festival is a big one, the
Yeah.
San Antonio Book Festival, but Dust Covered Lies came out a little bit too late to get it in the Texas Book Festival, so it was like, darn it, missed opportunity. But, and I had a event at First Light, and that was a big, that was a nice little boost. But we're not talking major sales here,
Neither.
I mean, my husband and son and I went out and blew my whole royalties check over martinis and
One night is.
East Coast oysters. So, it
You got oysters too, right?
Yeah.
Plus, it was pretty good chat.
Yeah, so,
You didn't frame it and not cash it?
No.
Memorable evening.
I cashed that bad boy. So, no, but it, and I go regularly onto Amazon author page to look
okay.
at, book sales, and I see one. Well, thank you.
Well, you have another one. You have another one just while you've been talking. You got a sale.
Great,
Good for you, Sam.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Is it available on audio?
It is not.
Is it on ebook?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, and you can, yeah, well, it means the world to me when people read it, because I just appreciate it so much, because it takes, a book takes a long time to read.
Sure does.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so people who do, I'm very honored. So if you guys are reading it, thank you.
Yeah.
I just would say thank you.
So we'll pass it around. So, yeah.
Yeah. Order it.
Does anybody else have a question or last comment for Catherine? I know we gotta wrap it up. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So much for coming.
It's been very, very useful.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better than anything.
Yeah, really.
So I'm a little bit of a professor myself, because I've
Yeah.
taught.
Well, there, I didn't see a PowerPoint.
That's a good idea.
Thank you guys so much for being here, and
Thanks a lot. Good discussion.
and,
Yeah,
and
very good.
come next time, it's gonna be reading. You can read work from this or from something else. Nobody has to read work, no pressure, but it'll be a fun.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
time.
Maureen, if Rob hasn't grabbed one, would you give him a copy for me?
Yeah,
I got one.
you got one for your dad too?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, all set. You got one coming. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so